Hello everyone, long time no see. So I took a couple of months away. I needed a bit of a break and I just needed some vacation time, so I essentially took some vacation time. But it's been a little bit. I haven't filmed in 2 months. I know you haven't seen me for a couple months, but I haven't filmed in even longer than that. So I feel really weird doing this, even though I've been doing this forever. It's just been so long. So don't mind me if I'm a little awkward today. But since I've been gone for a bit, I wanted to catch you all up on everything I've been reading and everything I've been doing. And it's kind of like the perfect time of year to do the mid-year book freakout tag and basically give you all an update on all the books I've read, the best ones, the worst ones, the biggest surprises, everything like that. I love making this video every year. Usually I make this in June or July. I know we're into August at this point, but still felt like the right time to talk about all this since I'm about halfway through my reading goal at the moment. I read 25 books out of my goal of reading 50 for the year, so I think I'm still fairly on track. I'm a little bit behind because I haven't been reading over these past couple months, but I feel like I'd made decent progress earlier on in the year, so we're still not too far behind. Because I haven't been reading, I've mostly been watching a lot of TV and a lot of movies, and I have been loving that. So I haven't really felt like I missed reading. It hasn't been a reading slump or anything. It was kind of like an intentional, I don't want to read right now type of break. So I've been replacing that with watching shows and movies and stuff, and I found some of my favorite pieces of media I've ever seen, which has been so great. Over the past couple years, you guys would know I've been getting more and more into gothic horror and just horror as a genre in general. And I've been watching a lot more shows and movies that are in that realm and read some books this year that are in that realm. And I've also been playing some games and things that are more mystery based. And one of the games I've been playing recently has been June's Journey, who is also kindly sponsoring today's video. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game that you can play on your mobile phone. It follows the story of June Parker as she tries to uncover the murder of her sister. It's set in the 1920s, and so it has that kind of art deco-y glam vibe to it, mixed with a fun detective story. So it has a really interesting plot line going on. So you feel like you get to unravel this mystery while you're also getting to play a relaxing mobile game that you can play in your downtime. One of the things I really like about June's Journey is that it has really beautiful illustrations, and apart from the mystery storyline, you're trying to unravel what happened to June Parker's sister, you also get to customize and decorate your garden island. So you have a mansion and you can move objects around and decorate it how you wish. So there's a customization aspect to it too, which is always a favorite for me in any kind of game. I really like playing games to help me wind down and relax, so sometimes before I go to bed, and a lot of the time I like to play them in between working when I have a little bit of downtime to just kind of ground myself and relax a little bit and get my head in a different space. I really like that it's a mix of multiple different things. One, I get to customize my island and make it as cute as I want to. Two, it's a hidden object game, so it's fun to actually use my brain a little bit to try and find the hidden objects, and it can even be a bit of a challenge, which I like. And then three, there is a murder mystery to solve, so there's a plot line going on, so it's perfect if you are a reader or really into that type of thing, which I very much am. June's Journey is free to download, so if you're interested in playing, use the link in my description or the QR code on screen to start playing today. It's available on Android and iOS devices and on PC through Facebook Games. And again, thank you to June's Journey for sponsoring today's video. So like I mentioned, I've been really into mysteries, I've been really into gothic horror and horror, so that will make up not necessarily actually too many of the books that I have read this year, but definitely some of my favorites. So without any further ado, let's get into the mid-year book freakout tag and talk about almost all of the books that I've read so far this year. So question one is the best book you've read in 2024. So I don't really have one single answer for this because I read 2 books this year that I really love. I think I might like one of them a little more than the other, but it's really hard for me to choose because it depends on how I'm feeling. But the first one is, I think, the most recent book I've actually read, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Like I mentioned, gothic, horror, I eat that shit up, and I loved this book. So many of you have been begging me to read this for years. I read The Beautiful Ones, written by the same author, I believe last year, I can't remember exactly, and I really liked that book, but everyone told me that they think I will love this one, and you were right. I did. This was phenomenal. I'm such a huge fan of any kind of horror novel that has a house, like a haunted house, or the house is kind of personified almost as a character in the story. That is one of my favorite tropes and themes and motifs in any story, and this one has that. So it was just a great time for me to read it. It was so weird at times, sickening at other times, but so so good. Can't recommend this enough if you haven't read it. I know it's really popular. It's been around for a while. It took me a while to get to it, but oh my God, 5 out of 5 stars. Loved this book. Can't wait to read more books by her. And then the second book I have on my list of top favorites of the year so far has to go to Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Oh my God. I think I probably like this one a little bit more than Mexican Gothic, but it's really hard for me to choose because they are very different from each other and they're trying to accomplish different things. And there are parts of that one I like more than this and parts of this one I like more than that. So hard to compare, but they're both phenomenal. And oh my God, this book, I feel like it changed my life. I also recently found out that they're adapting this into an animated film, and I cannot express how excited I am about that. The fact that this is getting an adaptation at all is fantastic, but I am so glad they're going with an animated adaptation because this will be so, so beautiful as an animated film or series. There's no way to adapt this into live action. It just would not work. It would be cheesy, people wouldn't take it seriously, but as an animated film, oh my God, it'll be perfect. Just so perfect. I can't wait. It's not a very long novel. It's a bit confusing and weird at times, but as you all know, I love weird, confusing things and books that are kind of no plot, just vibes. Although this one definitely has a plot going for it. It reminds me a lot of The Starless Sea. It kind of has that same atmospheric surrealism that kind of just messes with your head and you're not exactly sure if what the main character is experiencing is real, and he's not exactly sure if what he's experiencing is real. And it's truly unlike anything I've ever read. I don't want to explain too much about it. I knew nothing going in, like actually nothing, and I'm really glad because I feel like that made my reading experience even better. So I would highly recommend not looking up the actual plot summary or anything, and to be honest, it would probably just make reading it even more confusing. I don't think they'd explain too much anyway, but it's just one of the best things I've ever read. The writing was phenomenal, and I definitely want to read more books by Susanna Clarke now. Highly recommend it. Thank you to everyone who recommended it to me, because people were also telling me for years that they know I will love this book based on a lot of my favorites, and it has made its list onto my all-time favorites now. So yes, so excited and glad that I read this, and I am waiting to see what can top it this year. So every year I add in my own question because there is no question for the worst book you've read in the year. So for me, question 2, or I guess question 1.5, is going to be, what is the worst book you've read so far in 2024? This easily has to go to Unwind by Neil Shusterman. So I have a lot to say about this, but I also don't want to talk about it too much because I'm still planning on making a video about dystopian books. Either I'm gonna do like I read 5 dystopian books, kind of in that reading experiment style video that I've done, or I'm gonna do like an entirely separate video that's just on dystopian as a genre, or both, who knows. But point being, I'm not going to talk about it in too much detail here because I want to talk about it more in that video, but I will just say, I read this early this year. It's probably like the second book or something I read this year, and at first I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't really exactly understand how I felt about it. It left me feeling confused, but mostly kind of just disturbed, but not in the bad way, or at least I thought so, until I sat on it for a while and I kept thinking about it, and then I started reading a couple of other people's reviews because I couldn't sort out how I was feeling, and then I read some things about the author. I can't explain the way that this book really tries to manipulate the reader into thinking that it's taking a neutral stance. And it's just also odd that this is a young adult dystopian novel, so it's a book that's intended for a young audience and for children. Again, like I said, originally I was like, that was kind of cool. Like, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was confused about what he was trying to say, but I couldn't sort it out. And then I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and that's what made me do some more research. So yeah, wouldn't recommend, not a fan, deeply disappointed by this. I thought I was gonna like it based on what some people had said to me and the recommendations that I'd gotten. Sad that it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, and it was definitely the worst one I've read so far this year. Yeah, and it is also apparently the only book by a man that I'm talking about today, and perhaps the only book by a man I've read this year. So, unsurprising. Actual question 2 is, what is the best sequel you've read so far this year? I haven't read very many sequels. Actually, the only ones I have read have been manga and graphic novels, and I can't really pick one because I really like all of them, so I'm just gonna mention both. And the first one is volume 5 of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I read this during a 24-hour reading vlog, so you can see my experience of reading it, but I really enjoyed this. It was very good. It's not my favorite of the volumes in the series, but it was still enjoyable and I had a good time. And then the other sequels that I read are all of the sequels essentially to the A Sign of Affection manga. I watched this anime earlier this year, fell in love. It's so cute and so sweet. It's just such a feel-good show and such a great romance show, and so I had to read the manga, and so I read all 7 volumes. So volumes 2 through 7, I think are the ones I have, are all the sequels that I read this year that I really loved. Question number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. There are actually quite a few books that have come out this year that I really want to read that I still haven't been able to read. But starting off, the first one that I've been wanting to read for a while, and I've had it since it was released, is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherworlds. This is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I read I think last year, and I really loved. It was such a nice fantasy book, and I'm so excited to continue on in the world. So this is definitely one of the new releases this year I want to read. Next up, we have Evocation by S.T. Gibson. S.T. Gibson is the author of A Dowry of Blood, which is a book I read a couple years ago and really loved, and I was so excited to read more of their work. And this one is one that just sounded really interesting to me. I'm obsessed with the cover. I had to pre-order it just because it was so pretty. And I'm really excited to dive into this fantasy world. I'm realizing that all of my most anticipated books are fantasy novels, but you know, I'm getting back into my fantasy era and it's all I want to read at this point. But finally, the last book that I'm really anticipating that just came out, I think yesterday, so I don't have a copy of it yet, is This Ravenous Fate by Haley Dennings. This is a sapphic vampire novel set in the 1920s in Harlem, and it sounds so good. I have been following the author on social media for a while and just like seeing the little snippets she's been posting of the book because I've been so excited to read this. One of the main things I have been really into this year and have gotten deeply into is Interview with the Vampire, the TV show on AMC. That has literally changed my entire life. I will not shut up about it. So I have been wanting to consume all of the vampire content, the good vampire content, and I need this book like yesterday. So I'm very excited to read it. I really hope that I end up loving it, and I have a feeling that I will. So I just can't wait to get my hands on it and devour it. And yes, I have a feeling it's going to be so good. Question number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I have a couple for this one as well. First up, and probably my most anticipated book for the rest of the year, is The Heir by Slava Tahir. This is the first book in a new series set in the Ember and the Ashes universe, which is one of my favorite book series of all time. So I am so excited that we are getting more in this universe. It's going to be different characters. I think past characters will probably make appearances, but I am so excited to read this. Absolutely cannot wait. I just know it's going to be so good. The next book that I'm really anticipating in the second half of the year is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. Alison Saft is the author of A Far Wilder Magic, which I read a couple years ago and really loved, and so I've been really looking forward to this book. This is an adult sapphic fantasy romance book from what I know about it. I don't really know anything else about it, but it sounds really good. The cover art is so pretty, can't lie. That's like a big draw for me. And I already know I like the author's writing, so I'm very excited to read this too. And then lastly, another new release for the second half of the year that I'm really looking forward to. I actually have an advanced copy of, and I'm very excited and grateful that I do, and that is Blood Over Bright Heaven, which is released October 29th. This is by M.L. Wang, who I believe has published the Sword of Kaigan series. I think that's what they're called, and I think that those were self-published, but I know a lot of people really love that series, and they've been telling me to read them for a while. I've been wanting to read them for a while because it seems really good. It seems like something I would deeply like, and this is her new book that is coming out that seems right up my alley as well. I was so excited to receive an advanced copy of it, and I'm really excited to dive in. All I know about this is that it's a fantasy book with alchemy. You know how much I like alchemy, so I just know I'm really gonna like this. I've been wanting those like really intense, involved, high fantasy novels with like a really good plot with an interesting cast of characters, and I feel like this is gonna be exactly that, and I can't wait. I've heard the writing is fantastic, and I am just like, I'm in an era where I can't do bad writing anymore. I really can't. I used to read like all those like bad books for the videos and everything, and at this point I like can't handle it anymore. I can only tolerate so much of it, and I've been wanting high quality stories with high quality writing, and I have a feeling that this is going to be that. So can't wait to read this. Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment. For me, this easily has to go to Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Now I'll say this with the caveat that I didn't really think I was going to like a Christina Lauren book to begin with. However, I was disappointed because so many people told me they think I'm really gonna like this romance novel, and I thought that I probably would over a lot of the other Christina Tina Lauren books I've heard about. However, I read it and I was not a fan. There are certain elements of this book that I did really like. I liked the setting. It's set in the Berkeley Bay Area, and SF area, so places that I've lived, places I've been and go to regularly, so it was nice to be able to like recognize a lot of the locations that they go to. But beyond that, I didn't expect that the majority of this romance was actually just going to be between the two characters while they were teenagers. I thought that they were going to be adults for the main part of the romance, but you really see them fall in love like as teens, and that's a huge portion of the book, which is not a problem inherently. It's just that I thought it was going to be like adult romance and it felt a lot younger because of that. It's fine, it's just not what I thought I was going to be reading. But my actual biggest critique of this book is that there's a character who gets SA'd and it's kind of just brushed over. Like the book pretends like that's not what happens to them, and they end up being blamed almost for what happened. And I just did not like the way that the book handled it. It was uncomfortable at best. I just didn't like it. I didn't like that we just never addressed that as an actual thing that happened, even though at other points in the book we addressed similar things. So yeah, it was weird. Wasn't a fan of this, did not really like it, so that's my biggest disappointment. Question number 6 is your biggest surprise. So I have 2 for this one, and I don't have copies of either of them, but I really need to buy them. So first up, we have Vita Nostra. This is only a surprise in that it is not what I thought it was going to be, but in the best way. I had a feeling I would like this book because it was recommended to me by people who I really trusted and people who knew my taste really well, but I didn't expect the book to be what it is. And I also didn't expect it to like mess with my head so much. Reading this book was unlike anything I have ever experienced. This altered my brain chemistry, but in a different way. Like it made my brain really work. Like it really had to work, and you had to like give in to the fact that you were going to be deeply confused about what is going on for a solid like 80 to 85% of the book. You're not really going to understand what's happening at all, and you will really have to let go and kind of like put your faith in the story that it will eventually end up in a logical place. And it does, at least to some degree. And I don't know that I can ever read another book that will make me feel the way this one made me feel, but it was an enjoyable experience at the end of the day, and I'm glad that I read it. So I really ended up loving this book, and it's probably one of my favorites I've read this year. And then the second book that was a big surprise for me was Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is mostly a surprise because I've read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh a couple years ago, and I didn't dislike the book necessarily, I just didn't love it the way that a lot of people did. And so I thought that I wouldn't necessarily like some of her other books. However, I really liked Eileen. It's not my favorite thing I've read. I just think I was really, really invested in this story. I liked the mystery that we had going on. I liked seeing it unravel. I liked how much we were just stuck inside the head of this messed up main character. I really like an unreliable narrator and a messy main character who makes terrible decisions and is not the best person, and I like being in their head and kind of seeing what's going on with them. And I feel like this book did a better job of exploring that than My Year of Rest and Relaxation did, at least for me personally. I think she does a really good job of that as a writer too, so I really enjoyed this. I also watched the movie that stars Anne Hathaway, and it was okay. I think the book is better. The movie wasn't horrible, but the book was definitely better than the movie. But if you really like the book, the movie's still worth watching. Question number 7 is your favorite new author. They can either be new to you or a debut author. And for me, this has to go to Susanna Clarke. I really, really loved the writing in Piranesi. It was so beautiful, lyrical, and atmospheric. It was really, really vivid. Like you can clearly see everything that's happening despite how confusing things are, and obviously intentionally confusing. It's just so, so well done. And like I said, I can't wait to read more books by her. Question number 8 is your newest fictional crush. And I think for the last several years, I have not had I think I'm over that phase of my life, you know, but I do have new favorite fictional ships, and I don't have one from a book this year, but I already mentioned earlier that my newest obsession this year and the thing that has consumed my life and my soul is Interview with the Vampire. And my favorite fictional ship, which is what we're going to change this question to, has to be Louis and Lestat, because oh my god, those two have changed my life. They've changed the standards for what like love means, for what family means, for what affection means. I need you all to watch Interview with the Vampire. It's apparently going to be coming to Netflix, at least the first season, sometime in the month of August, so it'll be more readily accessible to people. I need you all to watch it. You can also watch it in other ways. You know what ways. I don't care how you watch it. I just need you to watch it because I need everyone to experience this story. Those two have changed my life. I'm actually considering reading Interview with the Vampire. I know about all the controversies with the author. I know that the book is not the same as the new series. I've watched the original movie. I am a deep lover of that original movie only because I find it so campy and entertaining, but those are nothing compared to this new series. This is like the greatest one of, if not the actual greatest new series I have seen, and it is like in my top 3 favorite shows of all time at this point. It's too good. So I need you all to watch it. I need you to give in, let it consume you, and let it take you on this journey. Understand that you have to go through a whole journey to get to the destination. It's not going to feel good a lot of the time, but at the end of the day, you will cry so much, and it's so worth it. So yes, one of the best stories I have ever seen, and I'm obsessed with the two of them, just as individual characters and also as like a couple in a relationship. It's just so good. Watch Interview with the Vampire. So tying into this previous question, the next question, question 9, is your newest favorite character. And this is also just Louis and Lestat again. You can't make me pick. I just love them all. Claudia, literally the whole cast, essentially. I don't have one single favorite character. I am deeply obsessed with Lestat because I like feel him, I feel spiritually connected to him in a lot of ways, but all of them are my favorites. They're so good. It's changed my life. Again, go watch the show. Please, you'll thank me later. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. And for me, ironically, this is A Funny Story by Emily Henry. This was not what I expected it to be. I don't know why. Maybe it was the title, maybe it was the cover. I hadn't read anything about the summary, but something about it made me feel like this is probably going to be one of my lesser favorite Emily Henry books. This is my second favorite Emily Henry book at this point, and it made me cry. Like, not sob my eyes out, but it did make me cry. It is a funny story, but it's also not a funny story because it's also emotional, and I just love the way that she writes a rom-com. It's just so good and so heartwarming, and I can't wait to see all of her books adapted eventually. Hopefully they do a good job with them. But yes, this is the book that made me cry this year. I don't think anything else has made me cry. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy. This has to go to Half a Soul. This was such a sweet fantasy romance set in like the Regency era. Usually I don't like fae stories. I've talked about this many times, but sometimes they're done right. And this is the kind of fae story I like. Like, I like a Holly Black type fae, like Spiderwick type fae. That's the kind of fae I go for, and this one definitely was more of that vibe. It's just such a sweet story. A lot of people said that it has Howl's Moving Castle vibes. I definitely agree to some extent. It has a lot of the same like themes at times, and I really enjoyed that about it. I liked the characters, I loved the romance. It was just an enjoyable quick read. Question number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received. This year I got quite a few of the Easton Press leather-bound books. A friend had like an estate sale and I was able to get a few of them for a good price, and I really just like collecting those leather-bound books. They're just so pretty and I love having a pretty book collection. So I have this one, this Moby Dick, which is just so beautiful, and this George Eliot book as well. Beautiful all around. I have a couple more you can see back on this shelf. I only used to have one. I just had A Tale of Two Cities, and now I have like 5, I think, which is really exciting because I would really like to see this collection grow. My dream is to get the Jane Eyre edition, The Picture of Dorian Gray. That's like my top one. They're just so pretty. I love them. I can't wait to collect more. And lastly, question number 13 is what books do you still need to read by the end of the year? So there are a lot of books that I still really want to read by the end of the year, all the ones I mentioned that I'm excited that are releasing later this year, and the new releases I still haven't read. But the top one is the book I'm currently reading right now. I'm about like a quarter of the way through and I'm really loving it, so I definitely plan on finishing this next, and that is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. I'm a huge fan of Ava Reid's writing. I absolutely love like every book that I have read by her, and this one I just know is going to be no exception. I also really love Macbeth as a play, so it's been really nice to get to read Lady Macbeth's perspective and her story, give her a story when we don't really know much about her, and I just love the way that the author approaches the story and her writing as well. So excited to continue with this. I know I'm going to deeply love it, and it will probably end up being another favorite of the year. There you all have it. That is it for all the questions in the mid-year book freakout tag, and essentially we have covered all of the books that I've read this year. There are a couple other ones, but I think I've mentioned them in other videos here and there. So yeah, I've made some good reading progress. There's a lot more I want to read. Not the best reading year for me in general, but I haven't been trying to read as much as I usually do, so I'm not like beating myself up over it. But it's nice to be back, to be making videos again, and to be talking to you all again about everything I'm reading. I have several videos that I'm excited to share with you and things I have planned, and I have like other things I'm working on that hopefully eventually I get to share with you too and I'm excited about. So yeah, it feels nice to be back. Be sure to leave a comment below about any of the books you've read this year. I want to know your favorite and your least favorite, and also tell me your biggest surprise. Again, don't forget to check out June's Journey in the description box below and download the game for yourself. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media to keep up with everything else I'm doing, all my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!